what makes you more than a AI wrapper? One criteria is you have some unique workflow or proven approach that
Mhm.
incorporates the LLM. I think that's a critical piece that can be differentiating. Welcome to the Talking AI podcast, where we talk AI with both experts in the field and early adopters. I'm your host, Matt Paige, and we're here to demystify AI for you so you can get some value from it. Let's talk some AI. Today, we're joined by Tim Hanson, co-founder of Penfriend. And for context, Penfriend is an AI native product that generates high-quality SEO articles without having to actually prompt. Plus, Tim's an all-around awesome guy, has a great British accent, so I know the audience is going to enjoy this one. Welcome to the show, Tim.
Thank you for having me, Matt. That's the one thing I found about now living in Vancouver is that I'm 100% more charming because I'm British.
Oh, yeah, I bet. You got to use that to your advantage, definitely.
Yeah, yeah.
And recently you relocated over to Canada, which is awesome. I got to hear about some of that later. But so I'm sure the audience is thinking, oh, I can generate content with ChatGPT or Claude or name your LLM. And that's exactly the topic I want to get into today. And that is, how do you actually create value with an AI native solution when you're competing against this insane pace of change we're seeing with LLMs, and avoid getting that like stamp of being an AI wrapper? And I don't mean the AI generated version of Snoop Dogg, like basically having a thin layer of functionality on top of an LLM. So for listeners, if you're not familiar with that term, we'll get into more of that later. Plus, I just want to hear about some of your journey of building Penfriend, which for listeners, it's an awesome solution. I use it, I can vouch for it. But I want to start like, what was that moment, that initial opportunity or gap you saw in the market that pushed you to create Penfriend in the first place?
So it came from a combination of everybody getting told that you don't have a job because all of the AI is going to come and just take over marketing, and marketers don't have a job anymore. And I'm realizing for myself in the way that I've had to do many times before because I work in SEO is that my job gets effectively rewritten every 6 months. Thanks, Google.
Mhm.
Good job. Really enjoy literally relearning my job every 6 months. And essentially, it's the same thing. It's every time that's happened, I get onto whatever educational sources I can, learn as much as I can as quickly as possible, start testing things and see what works, what doesn't work with my own sources, my own clients, projects, those kind of things. And honestly, this was no different. AI was coming, learn as much as you can, get things in place. And thankfully, from my agency days and running my own client work, I had a lot of SOPs in place of how I was doing things anyway. So very standard, this is how I get things done.
Mhm.
So it became very easy for me to use AI to replicate things that I was doing already, purely because I had done those things and written those processes out. I knew exactly what the steps were. I knew exactly what the output was supposed to look like. There was very rarely ever a case with me where I would put a prompt in and get a bad answer and go, "Oh, the AI is the problem." It was always like, "No, my prompt's just bad.
Yeah.
Like I'm not defining the job properly enough." And I think that then very quickly turned into, yes, you can use LLMs to get content, but you don't have a structure on how you want to get content out of those LLMs. You don't know what you want. You haven't made that content or that outline hundreds of thousands or thousands of times. And when you put something in, it's very easy for people to do the same thing. Oh, it's really bad. It can't write posts. It can't do this. It can't do that. And
Mhm.
you're entirely right. It can't because you're asking it in most cases to do 20, 30, 40, we'll get into it, but like potentially 100 jobs in one prompt.
Yeah.
And that's where it fails because you're asking it to do way, way too much and you're expecting that from it. You're giving it nothing.
Yeah. It's the quintessential, it isn't you, it's me. but it is
Yeah.
you. It's the person prompting.
Yeah.
And I forget who I was listening to, but they were talking about this in context for coding. Like I could ask, again, name your LLM, doesn't really matter, to write code for XYZ. Then I could write, say, another prompt and say, write quality code that's secure and XYZ. And it's going to write better code. And it's not
Mm.
just because it's lazy, it's just you got to give it that extra bit of context, or you could say, write it like some amazing developer, and it's going to be even better. And I think this whole concept of
Mm.
prompting as we know it today will evolve, but it's a critical point there that you hit on. And there's another piece too you were hitting on. It's this idea of effectively zero shot versus multi shot is another kind of concept. Are you just asking it to do something with no examples, one example, two example for additional context? And then how are you breaking it up? Am I asking it to go do everything in one prompt or breaking it out? And obviously, best practice is to do kind of what you were hitting on, break it up.
Yeah. For Penfriend, initially when like the first version that we released back in November last year, my co-founder and I, we sat down and we broke down like how many decisions do you as a human need to make to go
Mhm.
from I want to write a blog to I have a published blog.
Yeah.
Like how many decisions as a human do I have to make for me to do that process properly? And we worked out that it was a minimum of 28 decisions
Wow.
just to do the whole thing. And for each one of those decisions, you're wearing a different hat. You're taking different variables into consideration. You have a slightly different goal for you to pass on to the next, like the next version of you that makes another
Hmm.
decision. Some of those decisions you might go and make five in one direction. So one of these decisions in another direction to be made because you need that information. You need research. You need to go and read a load of other blogs or have a look at titles and see patterns before you can make this decision over here.
Hmm.
And yet you have people out there that are trying to write an entire blog in one prompt. We reckon you need at least 28. So the first version of Penfriend that came out was about 25 to 30 different prompts for it to write it. Now, the version of Penfriend that we have at the minute, whenever it writes any blog, it's about 80. It's almost four times as many prompts in some of the different ways that we do it. And it's purely because we realize that there's even more nuance to a lot of those decisions. There's a lot
Hmm.
more nuance, and we weren't placing anywhere near enough importance on some of the tiny little decisions that actually turn out to be really big things that we need to know. But also, we've got five different more sources of information that we use now to write blogs versus the way that we were doing it previously. Like now we're pulling information from like people also asked and doing fact checking through Perplexity and
Mm.
like doing a lot of the analytics side of things are all being done through ChatGPT, OpenAI, and then the writing side is through Anthropic. So it's not really to your point of is it just a wrapper? No, we're effectively using each of the individual LLMs for their strengths, but the way that we have it, as well as we have an agent that chooses what is the right LLM for the specific job, for the specific blogs that it's writing. And all of those are built off of templates, and those templates are built off of like we build prompts as it needs them and then asks the right LLM that prompt based on what is the blog that you're currently writing.
There's so many angles I want to go down. And you're starting to get into that point of what makes you more than an AI wrapper. I got to go back there
Mm.
real quick. Was there actually a moment in time that you remember that kind of triggered this whole idea of, was it using ChatGPT for the first time and you were just like, oh shit? And was it an oh shit moment, or was it like, oh, this is really cool, I could use this in some unique
Ah,
way? What was it, the negative scary, or was it the opportunistic
it
view?
was honestly, it was a little bit of probably unfounded bravado
Yeah.
in that I had a client. and they were paying a lot of money for a lot of content to be written. And I genuinely was like, I reckon I can write prompts that make you better content.
Mm,
I have to prove that I'm better than this. I can do this, and this is the direction that things are going. And maybe at the time it was entirely unfounded. I don't know, but it was like I don't see I don't see anybody doing this properly. And I think I can. I'm pretty sure I can do this.
yeah.
And then realizing like just how hard of a process that was, but really enjoying the process. And it was very evident of this is the way that things are going to go. I have to learn how to do this just to keep my job, for
Yeah.
me to still be useful to clients, for me to still be able to provide the service and the advising and the consulting that I love doing. I have to learn this.
Yeah.
I have to know that this is the way to, because I'm going to get questions about it. Of course, I'm going to get questions about it. I have to know. Yeah.
No. Yeah. No. That's interesting. So AI wrapper, let's get into this. There's a lot of people out there saying if you're an AI wrapper, good luck, you're dead. The next version
Yeah.
of
No.
ChatGPT or whatever is going to kill your product. Sam Altman was saying if the future stuff we have coming excites you, you're good to go. If it scares the shit out of you, you're in trouble. So I'd be
Mm,
curious to get your take there. But there's one piece you got in the Penfriend website, and I think it gets back to what you've been hitting on. You have a proven content strategy. It's delivered millions in revenue to your clients. You spent 1,800 plus hours refining prompts and guiding you through the article creation step by step. And I was thinking about this before the call. I'd be curious your take. If we can break this down for the audience of how they should start to think about this at the atomic level, what makes you more than a AI wrapper? I think one criteria is you have some unique workflow or proven approach that
mm,
incorporates the LLM. I think that's a critical piece that can be differentiating. Are you leveraging proprietary data in a unique way? I think that can be differentiating. And then are you serving a very specific niche, creating this like super tailored experience for their job to be done, how they operate? Like those are the three I
mm.
was thinking of. And I think the biggest point against the whole AI wrapper, you're screwed, is humans are very lazy. Yes, I can go to
Yes.
ChatGPT and do all kinds of things. But guess what? I can go to Excel and do all kinds of things too, but I don't use Excel to run my CRM. I use HubSpot or Salesforce or whatever. But
Yeah.
I had the three that came to mind. Thoughts on those? Are there others that you think differentiate you, build a mode, make you more than just a wrapper?
The process of how we build the blogs is very much, it's not a linear process. So if you were to
Hmm.
put a keyword into Penfriend, the first thing that we do with that keyword is we take it to Google and we see who is ranking for that uh, search term. So
Hmm.
immediately, that's not something any of the LLMs currently do.
Yeah.
You can't currently see. So that's, we go and have a look, see what ranks, read all of those articles and try and work out what are the patterns, what are the things that Google are rewarding for why those things rank. And then the other thing that we do with that keyword is we take it through an entire flow of who is the person behind this? What are they
Hmm.
looking for? What are they expecting to find? What actually answers the reason why they searched in the first place? Because I think the best way this was ever explained to me was somebody searching for an ergonomic chair isn't looking for an ergonomic chair. They're looking for a solution to back pain or
Yeah.
potential back pain, or because they're building a new desk setup and they just have
Hmm.
those things in mind. So you can potentially put all of the chairs you want in front of them, but if you don't address the core reason why they're searching for it in the first place, they'll never continue on. It's just a really difficult thing for them to do. So we try and work out as much of that as we possibly can so that before we even put a title in front of you, we've tried to work out what is the title that makes the most sense to the reason that this person is doing this search, so the human side of things, but then
Hmm.
also what are the patterns that Google is rewarding and what is the gap that nobody else seems to be talking about. And then we craft titles from there. So you put your keyword in, and we've done so much work before you ever get titles. And all of that comes from, we've got our own proprietary system and how we like figure those things out, but also it's just a lot of human understanding. There's a lot of prompts in the back end of just, okay, is this, what are the reasons? Do they want a product? Do they want information? Do they want guides? Are they looking for comparisons? Like all of
Mhm.
these different types of things. You get the title, that's one click. You like the title, cool. Now we'll show you what the outline is. So that outline, the way that we write that outline as well is whenever we create a title, we also try and work out. So if this person is looking for a guide, I don't want to accidentally start trying to write a blog for you that is A product versus B product. I want to make sure that the titles that I put in front of you actually create content that that person who's searching is looking for. So if they're looking for a guide, I want to make sure that the titles are conducive to how-tos or step-by-steps or things like that. So you get to see the entire outline. You can edit the outline if you want. I would prefer people edit the outline so they can make it more their own article at this point.
Mhm.
We found that like 10, 15 minutes of editing at this point can equate to up to 2 to 3 hours of editing on the other side if you
Mhm.
push it in the direction that you actually want to push it
Yep.
into.
In the
And
outline
then,
stage, right?
yeah, if you just go and add just the bits that you want to it, it helps a ton. And then during the writing stage, what we then go and do is for each section, we'll then go and pull facts and quotes and statistics from different libraries that exist, and they're live libraries as well. They're like proven places that exist. They're archival places on the internet that we have API access to that we pull everything into, and then for that individual section, this is the bit that I really like actually. That we put a lot of work into this earlier this year. So the entire blog is made up of different blocks, and each of those
Mhm.
blocks have got different prompts that write those blocks. But those blocks, those prompts change depending on where the block is in the blog. So if you have
Oh,
like the topic overview, that could, depending on the right blog, be at the beginning of a blog or be at the end of a blog. Now, I don't potentially want to write the same thing if it's at the beginning versus if it's at the end. So we have a thing that knows where the block is in the entire blog and knows what came before it and after it, and will write the section that fits depending on where it fits in the entire blog.
so it's dynamic in nature there. It's this crazy comparison of like human old way of doing it, ChatGPT or LLM way of doing it, and then Penfriend, everything you built into it, way of doing it. But I think I heard you mention this earlier. A big thing we're leaning into at Atrix AI is around the agentic approach to things, and you're leveraging these effectively agents for different tasks within a workflow. They're very specific and tailored to X thing, and they're working with other agents to execute on this thing. Are you actually taking that approach from an architecture standpoint? To your point, is there an agent specifically tasked with going and checking the competitive side on Google and whatnot and gaps, and then one for the titles and then outlines? Are there different, agents that have their specific role and prompts tied to them that you've architected in a
Yeah.
way?
Yeah. So we've got like mini versions of those at the moment. The main one that we're working on like right now is fact checking. In development at one point we were like, oh, we'll go and write all of these different things, and then we put it through a fact checking agent, and it would do this really interesting thing where it would, if it didn't know if a fact was true or not, it would just leave it, and sometimes it would just be completely false.
Yeah.
And then there would be times when it would go and grab like new fact, like good real facts, not fake facts, and put them in and still leave the other ones. And what we realized was the better way to do it is the other way around, is this is what we're
Mm.
going to write about. And
Yeah.
before we write that section, we then give that to like the fact agent. The fact agent goes and finds facts and stats and quotes and things like that fulfill like that blurb. And then we give the blurb and the facts to the bit that then writes. And that gave us a much, much better output because we're now telling the bit that writes, don't make shit up.
Yeah.
Use these.
Oh, that's
Figure
cool.
out the story
Yeah.
of this blurb, fit these jigsaw pieces in where it makes sense, and then it's good. And then we've got another one that then goes and checks that section and makes sure it didn't add anything in that it doesn't make sense to. It's crazy when you change the order of things because it became, I think it almost doubled the amount of prompts per section. So it
Mm.
then doubles like the cost of the section and all of this kind of stuff that comes with it. But it makes something that is ultimately considerably better.
Yeah. That quality
And
versus
it,
cost kind of trade-off.
yeah, yeah. But then the problem also with that is it's slower because
Yeah.
I now need to go and run all of this different information and pull from this and this. I think fact checking of anything of these kind of things is ultimately going to be such a differentiator. I think so many people at the minute don't trust like AI content because it's very easy to say something that is ultimately not true but sounds very true.
Very believable, right? It's like you almost
Yeah.
want in that like user experience standpoint, if I'm sitting there going through the fact checking stage, I almost wanted to take it a second just for my own peace of mind. Like, okay, it's working really hard
Yeah.
on this. But the interesting thing with this agentic approach is these agents can be working together in what feels near real time to us versus like our human mind thinks, okay, I got to go talk to Tim about this. I got to work with Judy on that. And it's just a very interesting way of architecting a solution. So for any like listeners curious about that, Reuven Cohen is a great resource. You can find him on LinkedIn, talks a lot about agentic stuff. We do a lot of talking about it with Hatchworks AI as well. I think that's a big area you need to understand as you're thinking about AI native solutions in the
Yeah.
future.
Have you played around much with, I think one of the next big stuff for us is all of the like vector storage and any RAG things that come next
Oh
is
yeah.
the
Yeah.
main thing I
So
want to do is get it so people can give us their content and we can understand it better and write a new article that can link to those, but
yeah.
also just understands it and we can write in that tone. It's very much the thing that makes the most sense for us going forward.
Yeah. So we could nerd out on this a minute. I need to connect you with our new CTO, Omar, on this. But so we're actually working on a RAG as a service solution that just makes it super easy to do exactly what you're talking about. But that's actually a really cool idea, just thinking in context of your product, because you could connect that to your point, all of your past content,
Mm,
anything brand related, tone of voice, like all of these different components that make it uniquely you. And that's the beauty of it is you can connect to those data sources and you don't necessarily need to go like train some new model on it. It's just an LLM is using that as a resource. And to your point, using kind of vector databases and whatnot, making it easy to go through and search that stuff. Yeah, I think that's
yeah,
a really cool kind of product evolution right there.
it's where my head was at that point, like this time last year, was I was like, this is the way I want this to go because it
Yeah.
makes so much sense. But we're, we're a very small team. Like, I think what we've done so far has been incredibly impressive with how little there are of us. It's, I think the main thing that I've learned with working with our dev team and like what we've done so far is take so much longer than I think it's going to.
Yeah. That's how it
Um,
goes when you're building a product. I'm all too familiar with that. And it's funny, I was just chatting with Matt Lewis doing another Talking AI episode, and he's the chief AI officer at Nizio Medical, so they're huge in the life sciences space. But they're looking at RAG as a solution as well for that reason, because obviously in content, you don't want that to be wrong. When it comes to like medical, you really don't want it to be
Yeah.
wrong there. And you mentioned human in the loop earlier. They're thinking very intentionally because you do want a human in the loop for some of those like medical related or life science use cases there as well. But I'm curious, Tim, like the SEO front in general, like there's also the angle that SEO could be completely disrupted and creating
Mhm.
content in general just gets completely flipped on its head. Any perspectives there? I know we've started seeing like people finding us via Perplexity and things like that, which is interesting.
Yeah,
Like, what's
that's
this?
cool.
Is there an evolution you think is going to happen just on the base principles of SEO past like generating the content, but of people finding what they're looking for, and then maybe you don't need a blog. Like, and what's the then you're like
Mm,
SEO optimizing for tools like Perplexity and things like that, just getting
yeah.
directly to the answer
Yeah.
and being a source.
It's interesting that you say things like that because we've seen other clients as well come up with, oh my God, I appeared in like Microsoft Copilot and things like this.
Yeah.
It is interesting to see. It's really cool to see things like that just starting to appear. I think people should always own their own content
Hmm.
and the media in one way or another. And I think, yeah, the way that people find those things will probably change. It probably will go from being like specifically in Google to whatever the whoever thought that in like our lifetime we would see Google actually have a massive competitor and not just one, like four or five, like all at the
Yeah.
same time. It's nuts. But yeah, for it, I think the medium of which people get found will change, but the medium in which people buy, I don't think will change much.
Mm.
I think there's always going to be a point of convincing the trust, really showing that you know how to solve people's problems,
Hmm.
and just getting people from wherever it is that they're searching for something to actually needing a human or a service or a product to help them and then paying for that. I don't know how much of the bottom part of that funnel is going to change. I think there will always need to be some level of content. It just makes sense for you to own
Yeah.
in that funnel in one way or another. I think the thing that made the biggest impact to me on just how important content is was it was it was a workshop that I was on like years ago, and if you it was a study done by Deloitte, PwC, and Google, and if you were to take between 0 and 10, 0 is never heard of you ever before. 10 is like the second before I give you any money or whatever your service
Yeah.
is. At what number do you think is the average point where a person gets in touch with another person on that like purchase journey?
Yeah.
It's 8.6. It's really far down that entire funnel, which means you have so much space at the beginning of that
They've done
you
a
are
lot of work
still
on their own.
selling. Yeah, you are still selling to someone without you ever knowing that you're selling to them.
Hmm.
So you need something in front of those people. You need something that makes sense for those people to make their own way down that funnel.
Yeah.
And if it's not on a blog, if it's not, maybe it's on YouTube, maybe it's on social, like these kind of places. But if it doesn't exist, then you're just not going to help those people at all.
Yeah. Here's one take. I'm just like riffing off the top of my head, like alternate reality. So we talked about agentic and agents and things like that. Say I have an agent in the future and I'm saying, hey, go find me the best product for X or have this problem, do that. The agent's still got to go and do some amount of research and figure out the problem
Ooh.
space. I wonder if in the future, like we're like SEO optimizing for agents and not humans, which
Yeah.
could
And
be
then are we
interesting.
writing, and then are we just writing blogs that are actually agents that can just speak better to other agents?
Yeah. Why don't we just connect them and just let them
Yeah,
do their thing?
yeah.
Uh,
LinkedIn just becomes like an agent marketplace.
yeah. Oh God, that's when agents start having AI agents start having their own LinkedIn profiles, where it's all
Yeah,
going downhill.
I'm moving to the mountains at that point. I'm done.
There's a couple of just questions to wrap it up. I'm curious on the Penfriend journey. What like
Mhm.
because a lot of our listeners are probably interested in thinking about how do I start adopting AI, build it into my products, build completely new and novel products. What was like the biggest challenge you or your team faced in this journey of creating Penfriend?
So the three of us are not technical. I am the most technical, and that is like really good at writing prompts.
Yeah.
Like actually putting that into software code, like these kind of things, like really wouldn't know where to start, let alone build a product. The
Hmm.
thing that I would recommend if you're in the same boat that we are is, yeah, like our developer Matthew is incredible. Genuinely, he's always asking questions about content, about SEO,
Hmm.
about the bits that we know and the problems that we have, and how he can make the product better. And I
Yeah.
think the main bit of advice that I would have is just find a developer that obsesses about the product,
Hmm.
because I've worked with many developers before that kind of just the code look is really nice and like they're obsessed about that side of things, but then just don't give a shit about what the product is and what
Yeah.
it does and what it solves and why we're trying to make it and those kind of things. Um, I think we got extremely lucky in that we found that person very quickly, very
Yeah.
quickly.
It's interesting. You're almost defining, I think, what will be the future prototypical engineer that's successful in the future. Because a lot of the tasks they do today will be made easier with AI. But if you get one that's truly product oriented, product minded, and curious, that's what's going to make you stand out as an engineer. So I think that's really interesting. What about what surprised you the most in the journey? Any just like big surprises, good or bad?
It's hard work. I've gone from being head of SEO in an agency to being a consultant and an advisor for startups, and then deciding, okay, cool, I'm gonna run on my own. Like
Hmm.
it seems like quite a typical, oh, those things make sense. And it is just so much more work, like hard work of just no one else is gonna do those things for you. You really need to just, yeah, it's late nights, it's working on things constantly, it's no breaks. I think
Yeah.
the not necessarily like the biggest surprise, but the biggest lesson I've had is 100% from my co-founder Iga. Just trust your gut and take risks.
Yeah.
It's very easy with me in like the SEO space is, oh, I have a process, I know what works, I know what like, it does this. And yeah, those work for the companies that I work with because they're already moving and they have traction. Whereas we're like right at the beginning and it's you have to take risks, trust your gut, try this. If it doesn't work, cool, you learn something. If it does, can you scale it? That's a big part of what we're building is just take that risk, trust in the people that you have around you. And if you fail, just get back up, try something else. It's okay.
Yeah, but at least you tried. And I guess when you're early on too, you have
Yeah.
the ability to take more risks with less potential consequences and whatnot. I think the
Yeah,
last
and I've
question
no
I
one
got
to
for you.
answer to
Okay.
either. I've
Yeah,
no one
that's the
to
thing
answer
too. You're the boss. You can just get mad at
to.
yourself and
Yeah.
yeah, go have a drink and everything's better. But what last question, just curious, what gets you most excited about where AI is going? Like we hear about it's like every day something new's coming out. What gets you most excited about the future? This could be related to Penfriend and SEO or just in general.
I'm a stickler for automating all kinds of tasks. So
Yeah.
anything that is any kind of automation, smart automation of things I think is just really cool. I like the way that AI is helping things in the creative industry. Like things do seem to be moving a little bit more towards like, the creative industry, film industry, arts, illustrations.
Yeah.
There's a little bit more adoption there than there wasn't at the beginning, and for good reason. There was a lot of content being stolen for no good reason to train those models. But like my background very early on was in animation, so it's cool to see. I think AI in games as well is going to be really
Oh yeah.
interesting. It's going to be a
Yeah.
hell of a lot more immersive, both in online games, digital games. But I'd be really interested to see how it comes into like, role-playing games and things like that. I think could be very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, because then it doesn't have to necessarily be fully defined. Where if X happens, Y happens, it can be truly unique, a unique experience. I think that's a really interesting point to see how that, and that could be games, that could be other media types like movies and things like that. It's definitely going to be
Yeah.
fun.
I think there'll be a lot more like immersive experiences with AI
Mhm.
characters that are like kind of IRL chatbots, but then you can imagine the same thing within games where characters are written entirely through like different chatbots and prompting and that
Yeah.
side of things. And it would be interesting to see what the first games are that come out with a fully AI character instead of them just being scripted.
Yeah. No, it's going to be interesting. All right, Tim, I think that's a good stopping point there. Where can folks find you, find Pen Friends? What's the best way to get out there and any type
Penfriend
of
is
offers and trying it out?
Yeah, Penfriend is on Penfriend.ai. You get your first 3 articles for free, and anybody who signs up for an annual subscription gets quarterly calls from myself to go over your content strategy. Because if you want to make that amount of content, you're certainly my kind of people. And then I'm Tim Hanson on LinkedIn, where after all of the development that we've been doing over the last couple of months, we're getting back on LinkedIn very soon. So I'll be there a lot more often. I was there a lot at one point. Took a break to build a product.
Yeah. Nice. No, yeah, just that little thing of building a product. Well, thanks,
Yeah,
Tim,
start
for
cold companies.
yeah, exactly. Awesome, man. Well, thanks for talking some AI.
An absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
Thanks for listening to the Talking AI podcast. If you enjoyed the show, give us a follow or subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget to leave us a review. We love those. For more info on Talking AI, visit talkingaipodcast.com.